All right. Okay. Well, Darryl Nunn, artist, printmaker, and member of the Riverside Print Group. Well, I've brought a selection of some of my prints over the past 7 years, I'd say, to kind of show the spectrum of what I've been working on and where I'm at now. A lot of things that I do now are influenced from my past educational experiences. Went to school for illustration and also went to school for painting and drawing. So I have a degree in both, but a day job in neither. So I found that being a member of the Riverside Print Group has definitely allowed me to keep up my practice. Forced me to keep up my practice, really, and I've kept that membership for that, kind of forced labor element. And definitely no complaints here. When you get older and get busy, it's sometimes hard to keep hobbies growing. So I think the constant effort of all the rest of the group members and their constant growth has really spurred myself on as well. And it's been really exciting to kind of see everybody grow over the last 15 years. Definitely, certainly came from formal art training background. Don't employ much of any of that in terms of what I do now, which is fun because, once you know it, then you can choose not to use it. Or you can choose to then start to employ certain aspects in other ways that weren't intended. So basically, we'll start off with some of my the first few that we'll show are Mesotint Dry Point. Again, you won't be able to see that in the camera view because it's really tiny. So there's a series of small mesotints that I did back in the late, basically around 2010, and started moving away from traditional line etching techniques. Or aquatint techniques, and really enjoyed the tonality and the drawing aspect of the mesotint. It kind of felt like it was printmaking but wasn't printmaking. And that was a theme that as you'll see, I've kind of continued to evolve. I really enjoy printmaking for the fact that it has stringent rules and processes, and at the same time having those markers in the road, if you were, also gives you options because you can choose to follow them or not at any stage, or choose to turn them inside out. And for myself, I think that has really helped me grow my process a lot. It's the process of printmaking has really informed, how I make my art, even though in many instances they don't look like prints. And in further reflection, in getting ready for the interview, I've realized that some of my prints now are starting to look more and more like stuff I did a long, long time ago that were paintings, which is really interesting. So I did a series of very small mesotints. Again, they were easy. Mesotint's a very labor-intensive process, and as a result, I didn't start big. Started small, but enjoyed the intimacy of it, and the fact that it was a fully tonal printmaking process, which previous print processes hadn't allowed for full tonality. Or if you wanted full tonality, you were working a long, long time. So I started off small with some small mesotints, doing these kind of anthropomorphized animal characters. This one here is a lion. The first one that you saw was a crow. I've done a number of others. And then I started to work a little bit bigger in the mesotint process because I really liked it. Also became interested in how I could tweak the process to kind of create more negative space. And so this was one of my first experiments with trying to isolate the image on the paper. Traditionally with printmaking, you're really locked into a rectangle. With most print processes, you're really locked into a plate or a stone or a piece of glass or something that is a rectangle. And I really wanted to get rid of that, but as you'll see, it took a little while. So this is a one plate out of a 2-plate print. This one again was mesotinted and kind of scraped and rendered, and so we have again anthropomorphized elephant in business suit. And the second plate that was added, which I don't have a solo print of the second plate, but the second one was water, and the water was actually etched. So that might be the only example of etching that I've brought today, using chemical process. That was a soap ground etching that I used to kind of create that real wavy texture, and then inked it in a unique way. My current approach to printmaking doesn't really involve looking to make additions. You know, I know that's traditionally what it's for, but I really like the process and the presses and the ink. And as you'll see, some of my newer stuff, it's not possible to make additions. And again, with things like these, when you've got the different colors of blue and whatnot, I think it's a lot more fun to kind of explore the matrix and kind of quickly get different results. And so this would be the biggest mesotint I've done, although it was a hybrid mesotint and colograph. Again, really, you know, I've got one print that I don't have a sample here. Unfortunately, it was framed and I couldn't take it apart for the interview. But it was an honest to goodness 12-inch by 12-inch mesotinted plate that took approximately a year to work on. And that, I mean, was amazing to work through the process, but also not really rewarding from a art creation standpoint. So this piece here represents me trying to find, we'll call it a shortcut, but you know, that maybe doesn't have the right connotation. Find faster ways of doing things. And so this plate was levigated using, was mesotinted using a levigator and carborundum. The negative space was actually airbrushed on acrylic gel medium that was self-leveling. And so I used a combination of the mesotint space, which is the dark, and then the light spaces were created using an additive process, which in printmaking you typically would call it like a colograph, because you're adding glue or ink or paint that then hardens, and then you wipe that to then achieve your texture. And so that's how that was created. This particular piece definitely carries on some of the themes that are present in the elephant and in the small animal hoods. So again, you've got your kind of strangely anthropomorphized animal. This one's called Buffalo Bluff, and it's a buffalo on a bicycle. He does have a mouse and a Muskoka chair on his back. There is a mushroom cloud in the background. And I don't know, this is not the best of proofs. Again, the really good ones are all framed. But the sign, in case you can't read it, says Trespassers W, which is actually taken from Winnie the Pooh. For those of you who don't know Trespassers William. And so, you know, really for me, you know, part of what I really like is kind of framing or examining themes of, you know, humanity's persistent influence on the environment and animal kingdom, and some of the contradictions inherent in that, considering we're members of said same family. You know, I like to kind of highlight some of those contradictions through allegory, through anthropomorphization, and through incomplete narratives. You know, much like the image here, it's definitely a narrative that's open-ended. There's certainly some literal and figurative road signs, and it's, you know, intended to engage the audience in terms of asking questions, because good art asks questions. Sometimes it's hard to give one fixed answer because answers change over time, and so do questions. So at the same time that I was working on that piece there, that was, I think in 2014, at the same time, you know, as much as it was really satisfying to come up with a faster process, I still really wanted to get rid of the hierarchy of the rectangle. I just basically become dissatisfied with it. And so I really wanted to figure out how to, you know, maintain white space. I know it's a lot easier to do so on things like lithographs, particularly lithographs on stone. Don't have the benefit of having access to that, and as well, very long time consuming process. So I started working in monotypes, spontaneous monotypes, using, you know, very simple components. These ones are made with really quite simple paper stencils, and are inked and then printed. Using ink transfer methods, various things, like really actually playing. And that was the intent, was to kind of create a fun interactive play process that gave me something immediate, and helped me grow. And really in the early days, there was no distinct message or narrative I was looking to do. It was really just, what could I do that's different? How could I turn this inside out? And am I gonna like what I get out the other end of this thing? Because I really just wanted to explore. I felt that at that point, I could certainly compose I could pin something down over months and months of work, but really wanted to find something that fed back into me instead of me pinning it down. So yeah, it started with, as I like to call them, my paper dolls. And that's literally what they are. So then they, again, it's very similar elements in this one here, a little bit of negative space action, but still very much floating. And that's really what I wanted. It was just kind of very self-satisfying. I don't really sell my art. I don't really show it outside of RPG shows. Not a very strong presence on social media or any of that stuff. I kind of just do it for myself. It's kind of my own quiet hobby. Helps to kind of take the stress off work. Get your head in a different space. And so this one again, I did call it Broken Arrow, but there was no real intention. It was just a result of more of a reaction to the final product. For those of you who don't know, Broken Arrow is a misplaced nuclear bomb. And this definitely does have a rocket falling out of the sky kind of feeling. Which I really enjoyed, the textures and the shapes, and basically the positive. I was just getting a lot of positive feedback personally from kind of working through this process. So definitely kind of sat in this state for quite a while. Kind of struggled to figure out how to take it to the next level, but I really liked it all the same. And then I started using some other materials that weren't just kind of paper and simple, very, 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 very thin metal plates. I started working with other things, more elaborate stencil stacks, better wiped small metal plates. Started utilizing the Cricut. For those of you that don't know, yes, it's that Michaels device that cuts stuff. It's magic. Just to basically help myself save time, repeat things I'd already done without having to go back to the glass and the X-Acto knife and spend an hour cutting a stencil so I could wreck it in 5 seconds. Now I could cut 15 and not care. So this is actually, again, same paper doll kind of process. Stacked stencils. This is all printed in one shot, and the background is actually done using embossed vinyl to kind of get the texture and the patterns and stuff that's in there. So again, just having fun with color and shape and placement and all that fun stuff. And then I've done some other smaller ones, again, similar steps, processes, and what I like about these is they're kind of very quick. And at this point in my game, I've got a drawer full of small assets that I can pull out and combine and wipe and play with. And I've also continued to, add other elements to the mix. So again, this was at our previous most recent RPG show from, I think, 2019, was when this one was displayed. And again, very similar elements, but a more satisfyingly composed effect. And fun fur. Who doesn't like fun fur? Who doesn't like fun fur? And the other interesting thing is that, you can print the same thing on different colored paper and get really different results, which is a lot of fun. So that is not a ghost, as some people will kind of refer to some things as ghosts, which I thought I brought the ghost of this guy, but I might not have. But anywho, again, exact same elements as the previous one, but just a very different effect. And in fact, same colors chosen, really, but it's just the influence of the paper color that really changes everything. And this one's a little older than the last couple I just showed. Well, definitely a little older than the last one, but again, just really trying to create a more open kind of space. There is no distinct narrative going on. These were just literally drawer assets that I combined in a way, and here they are. There's I think I've just been having a lot of fun through experimentation at this point, looking to see what would come out of it. And there's definitely something very satisfying about both about the lead-up process to printing and all the steps and checks and thought that has to go into it, so the pre-planning. But then there's also the insta-satisfaction that when you peel that piece of paper back off of that matrix, whatever it is you've printed, there's something there immediately for you that you've not looked at before. And it's very different than building a painting or building a drawing. It's a little bit more akin to, although prep different, but a little bit more akin to a gesture, where a gesture happens in a minute and a half and you're very unconscious when it happens, and then you stand back and look at it and say, wow, that turned out great. So there's that kind of inherent surprise aspect, which is not a natural occurrence on all art making processes. Oh, and then this one here. So this is one of the little proofs that I did in the lead up for the show, the piece that's in the show right now. So this is a small proof print that I did for Beaver Fever. Again, all the same elements that you were seeing before, but in a much more composed way, and also created in such a way that it can be repeated, which is really great. And I can have my little machine cut out my stencils, but all based on drawings that I did, that I fed into the machine and had it just do the work for me, which is really great, because then you get right to work. And I think, well, that's the end of the images that I've got.